here's the process for enrolling, making a setting of care choice currently. And it happens really before an individual knows their level of need. So for community, here we're comparing community and acute care entry. Most individuals who enter the nursing home do so from an acute care setting. That would be, I think, the reverse, of course, for community-based services, but both enter from both sources. So for HCBS, the client decides to apply in general. The Division of Adult and Aging and Adult Services completes an assessment, Form 703. Eligibility medically is determined. Somewhere along in here, financial eligibility is determined, currently by the Division of County Operations within DHS, the local office. HCBS services are received, and DAAS performs periodic reassessments of eligibility of need to determine the plan of care. For nursing facilities, the client decides to apply for the nursing facility or enters from the acute care setting. The nursing facility completes the form. Eligibility is determined. Obviously, Medicare payment and eligibility is present for, was it 90 days in many cases. And then the nursing home continues to perform the MDS, and that is the reassessment on an ongoing basis. So the comments we're making here is that currently the client chooses the setting of care before their options and needs are well understood. Now we're also aware that we're talking about individuals who have certainly a varying level of need, sometimes a varying level of cognition. So we're aware of the connotation of choice and alertness, etc. But what is true is we're assessing after choices are made in many cases. And currently the process doesn't allow for an easy change in setting of care selection. It's just, we've kind of built these programs, which are very good programs, but we built them in silos. And part of the long-term service and support payment reform effort is to create a continuum and to have in one form or another, a singular process.
Peggy Moody, I'm a nursing home provider with Catholic Care, small provider here in Arkansas. I have a question about this slide and maybe a little bit about DAS. In my understanding, my knowledge, no knowledge of nursing homes is you've left out a step of that, in that the nursing homes do complete the 703, or even the hospitals sometimes will complete the 703. But it is determined independently from the nursing home by the Office of Long-Term Care Reviewer whether that person qualifies for medical benefits. And that step's left out of this. The nursing home's not making that determination. The review of the record by the Office of Long-Term Care makes that determination. And my understanding at DAAS that they complete the form and make their own determination for the medical need.
We have two questions there. Carol, can you handle the first question or an answer to the first comment?
I think there's just one question, and that's about how eligibility. I mean, I know eligibility with nursing homes is determined independently from Office of Long-Term Care. Yes, they do review our paperwork, but the determination is by their reviewers, who also can ask for additional documentation if we haven't done a good enough job. The question is, is DAAS that same way? Because my understanding is that they not only fill the form out, but they also make the determination.
Regarding the HCBS, the assessments are performed by DAAS, but then they are forwarded to us, and we review the 703 for the AS clients the same as we do for nursing home. So it is an equal system. Correct?
Yeah. Second question.
And there are others here that have more knowledge about this than I do, but also then my understanding is that the MDS has nothing to do with our current assessment and review process for nursing home residents. That was a process used for CMS. And I know you're trying to, I don't know what you're trying to do with, I'm sorry, but because our review process for medical eligibility is not based on the MDS at all, other than for Medicare system payment system. And so, I'm not sure how you're making that go in the circle of things here.
That's a fair point.
And I think it would be good to include on both portions then that there is an independent review. And then I'm sorry, but then I have a third question.
Let me just answer that one if I could.
That's fine.
I mean, we are leading towards payment reform, so the chart is really geared towards that aspect. And so you're right. We're just pointing out that were we to actually match the payment to the level of need in the nursing home, it could be based on the MDS because the MDS is updated, and I guess it's hypothetical. So it's a fair point about the current state of the world.
Okay, so that's where you're planning to go, is the assessment through the MDS in order to qualify for medical services in a nursing home?
Potentially.
Okay. As we go along. Okay, then my other question is in payment. And again, just this clarification, because the knowledgeable people are sitting behind me, I guess. My understanding, nursing homes, when they we accept the resident and then payment goes back to the day that the resident's accepted into the nursing home. But in community-based services, I think that they have to be approved and can't receive services.
That's right.
And so, I'm just curious which direction you're planning to go with nursing homes because, of course, that's going to really affect people.
Sure. So, and for example, it's a good question and has a lot of analogies or there's similar circumstances in, non-long-term care payment as well, where you have a determination of need that can't be accomplished before someone's already receiving services. And there are any number of ways to deal with that, and we'll need to. I mean, we clearly don't want to put providers at risk. We don't want to play gotcha. And so any assessment or relationship between payment and need has to take account of what people know. Both the potential patient, as we've pointed out, needs to know what their level of need is, ideally before they choose a setting, and the provider kind of needs to know what to expect. So you're right, and that does mean we'll have to take, some special account of payment for the first period, for the first period of time in a nursing home, in a nursing facility. We'll honor the questions that are submitted in writing and either respond that way or provide some other form of feedback to get those. Absolutely. Let me move on to the next page, which is which is a picture of where we are thinking of heading. And there's one amendment on this. Clients will now apply for long-term services and choose their setting after the need is known and available options. And this is a high-level view of how it would work. I think there's a great many details to work through, and we'll not be able to walk through each of them tonight. But the community and acute care entry, the universal assessment would be would be, and a universal assessment would be administered. We'll talk about which assessment that is in a second. Where would it be assessed? Because we're coming from different places and conditions. For community-based entry, DAAS would do that. For entry from an acute care setting, that's to be determined, and we've given you a sense and full transparency of the options we're looking at, which could be either a third party, or at this point, I'd have to say we're probably leaning towards this suggestion, using acute care staff themselves. Partly because of the great difficulty in just procedurally assessing an individual in the time frame and on kind of the spur of the moment as it occurs. That's a coordination challenge, and there are other states we found out late, I think last fall, that do it in this way. Now, what I want to correct in this case is the DHS has made a decision, and I think now providers have been notified of DHS's intent to transfer the financial eligibility from DCO to transfer that unit and that responsibility to DAAS effective October, I believe, of this calendar year, so that that would be a correction to this slide. And
let me just say, October is a go, but the world will not implode if we don't make it, but that is the go.
That's target, goal. And then you've already seen the rest of this, and it makes a little more sense now what we would mean in terms of the context of payment, that the reassessments would occur either by DAAS or the nursing home, either universal assessment or the MDS. Throughout this process, because we will have providers performing assessments, we would continue and really enhance the audit process and the review process of those determinations. And we'll have to create that capacity likely to be outsourced for that review, for that audit in particular, in the nursing home and in the acute care setting. If we're asking providers to do an assessment that drives payment, we'll need to come in behind that with audits to ensure not only those results, but the consistency of those results with DAAS staff, so that we're getting the same assessment in each setting. So we'll also be auditing, the intent would be auditing all three mechanisms for delivering that universal assessment to ensure both internal and external consistency. Questions? I know we have one.
Claudia Beverly from the Institute on Aging, and I have a couple of questions. And one is somewhat of a concern about acute care staff making a determination, because most of those staff work in an acute care setting. They don't know a whole lot about long-term care. And yes, we have had discharge planners, social worker, nurses, and so forth, but that hasn't been to the level of really understanding what is in the best interest of the patient that will be going into long-term care, and I'm using that in the broadest sense. I think the other thing is I worry somewhat about someone being the demander as well as the supplier, and it seems like to me a third party for both entities that you're talking about, but I'm going to put it third party for all of long-term care might be something for us to look at, so that we don't have that. And I think you talked about maybe taking care of it in an audit, but I'm wondering if maybe we ought to think about a third party, neutral party at the very beginning with universal assessment.